Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you with us today to continue the third South Brazilian Biogas and Biomethane Forum. I hope everyone can hear me. If you have any Portuguese or English, whatever you prefer. The third South Brazilian Biogas and Biomethane Forum is the result of a collaborative effort by Biogas, Embrapa, and UCS. It is organized by ISBERA, Brazilian Society of Specialists in Waste from Agroindustry and Agriculture Production. We started this year's edition on Monday, so yesterday, with the Biogas and Biomethane Seminar, Economic Opportunities for the Rural Environment of the Southern Region. Yesterday, we had several panels, overview of biogas in Brazil. We had another panel, biogas in distributed generation, and prospects after the changes. And the third panel that happened yesterday was titled Biogas in Agriculture and Livestock. So today we will offer also some plenary meetings, discussion rooms, business area, quizzes, networking. And this third edition of the South Brazilian Biogas and Biomethane Forum. We will present some of the sponsors under Master Quota, Golar Power, Bionational Itaipu, Brazilian Energy Program. Then Silver Quota, we have BRDE, Leon Energia, SC Gas, Sul Gas. Bronze Quota, we have AB Energy, A White, CHP Brazil, Enermac, ERBR, GNPW, Janus and Perger, Lubin, Prex Diesel, Sebrae, ATAP Sinocultura, IFAM, Trevisan. During the break, we invite everyone to visit companies and entities exhibiting at the business spaces. Access can be done via homepage or the menu on the left side of the page. On behalf of directors, a special thanks to all the speakers and moderators that will be with us during these days of forum. Thank you. Here are some points to make. That at the end of each panel, we will have a discussion with the speakers and moderators. Vote directly on the chat, pointing the 2 questions you want to be answered by the group. Discussion rooms will start after each panel closure. Check the topics and the language by assessing the homepage. And remember that each discussion room is limited to only 50 participants. Take advantage of visiting business space, exhibitors, and scheduling meetings with representatives, any kind of company, during coffee breaks and lunch. If you may have questions, homepage has the section Help on the forum. we will now see a brief video from Itaipu International.
Todos os anos, Itaipu entrega milhões de megawatts-hora e transforma a vida das pessoas. É a energia que está no sorriso da Aninha, na brincadeira do Caio, no trabalho do Paulo, na vida da Maria. E com toda essa energia, Itaipu entrega obras que beneficiam a nossa gente. Porque mais do que gerar energia, somos uma usina de entregas. Itaipu, o amanhã já começou.
So let's start the plenary with the panel Synergies between Brazil and the United Kingdom for the biogas sector. First Brazil-United Kingdom biogas meeting. This meeting will be presented in English with the simultaneous translation to Portuguese. Now I would like to invite to open the panel two special speakers that we have, Heloísa Borges from EPE and David Lloyd Davis from Prosperity Fund. And we'll welcome Heloísa, and let me just say a couple of words about Heloísa's impressive history and experience. So Heloísa has a PhD in economics from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. She has master's in economics. She has a postgraduate degree in public law. She has graduated in law, and she has a bachelor in economics, all from Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. She was a visiting researcher at the University of Virginia Law and a fellow at the Columbia Women's Leadership Program at Columbia University. She is the author of scientific articles and book chapters related to energy economics, regulation, and antitrust. Heloísa has served in various positions in the Brazilian public administration as a teacher, researcher, and federal civil servant, and joined the National Petroleum Agency in 2005 as a specialist in regulation of petroleum and its derivatives, fuel, alcohol, and natural gas. At ANP, she served as technical advisor at the coordinator for competition, defense, and advisor to superintendents, deputy superintendent, and bidding promotion superintendent, and was responsible for conducting the bidding rounds held by ANP in the years of 2018 and 2019, and for conducting the modeling review of the notices and sharing and concession contracts between 2017 and 2019. So, welcome Heloísa from Empresa de Pesquisa Energética, Energy Office. Please welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Katia. Thank you all. The representatives of the UK Prosperity Fund, the UK government, representatives from associations from Brazil and United Kingdom, and good morning to all of you that are watching us today. It is with great pleasure that I'm here representing the Energy Research Office of Brazil in opening this panel. EPE provides research covering all energy-related areas and supports the Brazilian Ministry Minds of Energy in energy planning and policy design. And we are a huge fan and incentive and supporters of public policies designed to stimulate renewable energy sources in Brazil. These policies date back to the 1930s. Brazil has a lot of expertise on several renewable energy sources and uses, and has today one of the most renewable energy matrix in the world. But we still believe that biogas can be an important ally in the context of energy transition to a low carbon economy. We are, as the rest of the world, we are fairly sure that the use of energy will change in the coming years or decades, and biogas has the potential to be an important source, an important ally to all countries during this transition. In Brazil, the greatest potential for biogas is found in the agricultural sector, but also a considerable amount can be obtained through solid urban waste and sewage. Our projections indicate that the potential for biogas production in Brazil by the end of this decade may reach 2 times the volume of natural gas that we currently import from Bolivia. It's a lot of potential and has a great transformational power for us. In previous days, as Katia has mentioned, and as I'm sure you all have seen, we have seen lots of presentations with numbers and information about our potential and how to reach it, how to get there. But I would like to stress out that technical cooperation partnerships, like the one we are talking about today, are critical and essential to accelerating our learning curve. Learning from those who have already done it saves times and resources. And in general, it's beneficial to both parties. The UK and Brazil partnerships unite those countries in the innovative use of renewable energies and clean technologies. And this program has as one of its objectives to support Brazil in its energy transition. I would like to conclude stressing out that biogas is an important vector for regional development and for reduction of social exclusion, not only in electricity generation, but thermal energy in small rural areas. And it provides opportunities to improve the quality of life in the countryside and in the urban centers in general. I'm sorry. I would like to remind you that access to clean energy is one of the pillars of the Sustainable Development Goals as proposed by the United Nations. Currently, we have 1 billion people that still live without electricity and more than 3 billion use polluting cooking fuels. And that affects health, productivity, and the quality of life of these populations. Brazil is among those numbers. There are very obvious correlations between the sustainable goals, and there are others that are less immediate. And what I'm trying to say is that identifying the potentialities that result from correctly mapping the interrelationships allow us to see all those objectives from a new perspective, and therefore we can optimize our efforts, we can save resources, and in the end maximize the growth and development sustainable of countries, people, companies. Harnessing the potential of biogas, not only in Brazil, but especially in Brazil, allow us not only to achieve the goal of access to clean energy, but contributes in the Brazilian reality to reduction of hunger, the development of sustainable agriculture, eradication of poverty, and the reduction of inequalities. I also emphasize that in general, policies that provide access to clean energy have significant effects on the improvement of health for the general population, and finally, for the reduction of gender inequality. It's important to stress that it will be extremely difficult and each time more difficult for countries to achieve important results towards sustainable development if we do not pay attention to social inclusion and if we do not start designing policies with strong gender lenses. We have a great group with us today. I'm fairly sure I've exceeded my time. I would like to stress out that our challenges are not simple ones. building partnerships and building a new world, it's not a simple, it's not a simple objective, and our goals are ambitious, but we are not here to settle for not leaving our children as the one that, you know, try to come here right now. And I want to leave him and our children a better world than we received. I would like to remind you all of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eloisa. And it was a perfect conclusion, because it's true, right? We are so much to handle, and at the same time, managing pandemic, working from home, having families next to us while we do most important presentations to thousands of people that are listening. So thank you very much. And now I would like to invite David. David has been a director of the Prosperity Fund in Brazil since August 2019. He's a civil servant with a background in development, and most of his career to date has been with the UK's Department of International Development, DFID, working in Africa and in Asia. Before coming to Brazil, he worked for the Department of International Trade in Southeast Asia. And before that, he was also in Brussels for over 4 years, representing the UK in the European Union Council Development Policy Working Group. David lives in Brasilia with his family. Please, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Katia. Good morning to you and to Eloisa and to all the panelists who are with us today, as well as those who are watching in the audience. Yes, brilliant illustration, Eloisa. I don't know if you set that in advance for your child to come in, but a great reminder of the importance of the next generation, as well as the distractions we all have of working from home. I just had to ask my wife to make our dog be quiet for a few minutes while I speak. So yes, as Katia says, I'm proud to be the head of the UK government's prosperity programme in Brazil. I work with my colleagues Clarissa Vargas and Louise Hill, who some of you know, who lead our energy programme here. I was very pleased to be invited to speak at this forum today. I'm certainly not an expert in biogas or biomethane, so no difficult questions, technical questions to me, please. But it's great to be able to speak about energy synergies between Brazil and the United Kingdom, which is key to what we call mutual prosperity. Essentially, we want both countries to grow together, creating opportunities. Our UK-Brazil Energy Programme, or BEP for short, supports Brazil's transition to a lower carbon economy that offers affordable and clean energy to power inclusive economic development, thereby reducing poverty and enhancing gender equality and social inclusion. This programme is part of our wider bilateral cooperation with Brazil on energy transition and clean growth. This partnership was made official last December through a memorandum of understanding, an agreement, signed between UK and Brazil's energy ministers. My colleague, Clarissa Vargas, who's the head of our energy programme, did a presentation yesterday showing a few of the first results we've been able to achieve in partnership with different stakeholders in Brazil. We're very happy to be able to contribute to an important sector such as biofuels. Our programme strategy is to focus on areas of growth within energy subsectors where social benefits, jobs, low-cost energy for women and the poor, environmental impact, and UK-Brazilian cooperation can flourish over the next few years. We know that Brazil is a renewable energy champion. We're aware of the great potential of the biogas sector in Brazil. We're happy to be participating in this event, which will allow us and others to identify further opportunities for collaboration. This forum is an excellent example of how the partnership between our countries is leveraging great opportunities. The biofuels sector is already a highlight in our commercial partnership too. Today we'll hear from different British speakers, including my UK government colleague, Deborah Sachs from the Department for International Trade, who'll be talking about support from the British government to commercial opportunities for the biogas sector. We'll also be joined by Charlotte Morton, who's the Chief Executive at ADBA UK, who will present to us about the biogas sector in the UK and current market trends and challenges. And also we'll be joined by our colleague Dorian Harrison from Carbon Limited Technologies, CLT, which is part of the Brazil Energy Programme, who'll be presenting to us on UK technology and innovation in the sector. The United Kingdom's proud to be hosting the COP26 Climate Summit in November in Glasgow in Scotland. We want to use the opportunity of hosting that big summit to boost international cooperation in clean energy, creating jobs, providing cheaper energy, and stimulating economic growth and recovery. Brazil and the UK are at the forefront of this movement. At this forum, in the meantime, we want to share the UK's successful experience, but also learn about how we can further strengthen the cooperation and trade and investment between the UK and Brazil. The British government's keen to hear from you on where we can further collaborate and contribute with our experience. I've already heard great things about the results from yesterday's sessions, and I expect there'll be a lot more to share from today. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, David. And now I open the floor to the panel. I invite moderators, Thomas and Felipe, to lead the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katja, and thank you very much, Eloisa and David, for setting the tone for today. I welcome everybody here. I'm very much looking forward to a very interesting group of speakers that'll clearly demonstrate the great opportunities and synergies that there is between biogas or for biogas in Brazil and the UK. But we shall move forward to the first speaker, and I would like to welcome Charlotte Morton, who, as David said, is the Chief Executive of the UK Anaerobic Digestion and Bioresource Association. This is the UK trade body for the biogas sector in the UK, and Charlotte is going to give us a bit of background of the state of the market and the direction of the market in the UK for the biogas sector. Charlotte, welcome to today.
Great. Well, thanks, Thomas, and thank you very much indeed for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. Yes, as you said, I'm Charlotte Morton. I'm Chief Executive of the UK Anaerobic Digestion and Bioresources Association, more swiftly known as ADBA. And we're very delighted to support a programme aimed at the development of the biogas and biomethane supply chain in Brazil, and believe that the UK could play a key role in this effort. So today, I thought I would just try to give you a clear overview of the AD sector in the UK. But first, a quick introduction to ADBA. Yes, we're the trade association for the anaerobic digestion industry in the UK. We were established in 2009 to ensure that the industry had a single united voice to represent its potential to government, and to ensure that we could break down the various barriers that the industry had from reaching that potential, but also, very importantly, to ensure that we built a professional, safe and high-performing AD sector in the UK. In its first 10 years, ADBA has facilitated a 350% growth in the UK AD industry through a range of activities, including obviously lobbying, developing training programs, and introducing the AD certification scheme, as well as running events, working groups, and various other activities. The AD certification scheme in particular was developed to ensure that all AD plants are designed, built, and operated well. We have roughly 350 members comprising AD plant operators, the AD supply chain, local authorities, farmers, transport fleet managers, energy companies, academics, waste management companies, and of course those people who fund AD plants. Next slide, please. In the UK, the AD sector is already reducing emissions by over 1%. And with the right support, if we are able to recycle all the organic wastes that humans produce, we could help meet as much as 6% of the UK's total greenhouse gas emissions. The industry is currently employing about 3,500 people. And ADBA has also helped those working in the UK AD industry to tap into the potential 1 trillion global AD market through championing the enormous export potential of UK AD technology and services, and supporting the foundation of the World Biogas Association, WBA, which represents the industry at a global level. So the UK is now a world leader in AD, with UK companies exporting over £200 million worth of biogas-related expertise and equipment per year. Next slide, please. So now a quick overview of the current AD market in the UK. There are currently 674 anaerobic digestion plants, of which close to 200 in the wastewater sector. Total industry capacity is now at 1,013 megawatt equivalent, megawatt electrical equivalent, generating almost 16 terawatt hours of energy every year. Of those, there are 115 biomethane to grid plants in operation, with a total installed capacity of nearly 90,000 meters cubed, which is enough to heat around 500,000 homes.
Charlotte.
And there are 5. Hello?
Please wait a minute, because we having problem to change our slides. Just a second,
okay.
Please.
That's possibly, I didn't indicate change slides at the beginning, so my apologies.
Okay. I'm just waiting the green light
Sure.
from the technical team.
So I think we've probably now caught up from what I can see, or I think I'm still on slide. I was just finishing slide 4, if that helps.
Yes, the market overview.
Yeah.
Okay. We are just trying to share again the presentation.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much. So yes, as I say, there are 115 biomethane to grid plants in operation with a total installed capacity of nearly 90,000 meters cubed, which is enough to heat around 500,000 homes, and 551 electrical CHP plants fueled by 9.4 terawatt hours of biogas. Next slide, please. So to better understand the current UK AD market, I thought I would share with you a very brief history of the sector, which actually started off in the wastewater industry many decades ago. The wastewater industry has been treating the UK sewage using AD for well over 40 years, with around close to 200 AD plants. However, outside the wastewater sector, the AD industry really only kicked off in 2002, when electricity generation through AD was incentivized via the renewable obligation and the trade of renewable obligation certificates, or ROCs. In 2008, the renewable transport fuel obligation came in, but that didn't really incentivize too much biomethane production at this point. In 2010, and running to March 2019, the feed-in tariff scheme came in and helped to drive industry growth significantly over the last decade, with the number of AD plants generating electricity growing threefold over that time. But in 2010, in November, the renewable heat incentive has been the real driving force supporting the growth of biomethane to grid plants and resulting in the development of over 100 biomethane plants. This has been complemented by the RTFO, which supports the use of biomethane in transport. And many operators are now able to take advantage of both the RHI and the RTFO, depending on which offers the highest price, although they can't obviously claim both for the same gas. And particularly between the years 2013 and 2015, strong government incentives resulted in the construction of over 100 new AD plants every year. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of timelines. Again, in 2016, or by 2016, the UK had commissioned its 500th AD plant. In 2017, the UK AD industry had enough capacity to power over 1 million homes. And by 2019, we'd hit the 100 plant biomethane milestone. And in 2020, a new scheme was proposed, which was a green gas levy to fund a green gas support scheme, which is taking over from the renewable heat incentive and is the UK's first AD-only support scheme, which is set to bring in £150 million a year of support to the UK AD industry.
Charlotte, I'm sorry, we still have the problem. We're really sorry about that. We are trying to change the way we share your presentation for the public. I think we will need 2 minutes for that. We are really sorry about it.
No problem.
About the
rhythm.
You are at slide 13 now, yes?
Slide 7. Slide 7.
7th? Okay. Okay, just 1 more minute. Okay, perfect. I'm sorry, Charlotte, you can continue. Thank you.
That's great, no problem, thank you. So very, very briefly, just moving away from history to today's trends, it's important to highlight that initially the government support for AD was very much focused on generating renewable electricity. However, in recent years, that focus has shifted to biomethane generation, which is a more valuable use of biogas, given the large number of renewable electricity sources and the few sources of renewable gas. And with help from the GGSS, the UK government is now looking to triple the quantity of biomethane injected into the gas grid over the next 10 years. Moreover, in the UK, the market for biomethane for transport has also been gaining significant strength, particularly over the last 2 years, as demand for the renewable transport fuel obligation and biomethane for transport has never been stronger. This is helped very much by the government facilitating greater flexibility for plants to switch between the two schemes, the Green Gas Support Scheme and the RTFO. So as the price for renewable transport fuel certificates increases, many of the operators will be sending their biomethane for use in the transport sector. And supermarkets such as Asda and Waitrose, as well as councils in big cities such as Bristol and Nottingham, are among some of the early adopters of biomethane-fueled vehicle fleets in the UK and reaping the economic and environmental benefits of doing so. Slide 8, please. For a more complete overview of the UK AD sector, it's helpful to look at some of the key feedstocks that are being processed. In all nations of the UK, AD is classed as the optimal form of treatment for food waste that can't be prevented or redirected for consumption by humans or animals. Indeed, AD is the only way to fully recycle inedible food waste and provides a mechanism to reuse both the energy and nutrition locked up in these wastes to heat, power and fuel cities, whilst improving soil quality through the production of natural fertilizer digestate. This is crucial for helping to restore carbon to soil and displacing the use of fossil fuel-based fertilizers. Today, it's estimated that 2.7 million tonnes of solid food waste gets sent to AD, of which just over 1 million tonnes came from local authorities. But food waste to AD is expected to increase sharply with the introduction of universal food waste collections. These are an absolute must to both reduce food waste and ensure inedible food waste can be recycled into renewable energy and natural fertilizer, rather than being wasted in incineration or landfill. The UK has already committed to the introduction of separate food waste collections by 2023, and these need to be rolled out as soon as possible, but also importantly be designed well to ensure maximum recovery of food waste. Currently today, only 50% of councils collect food waste separately, either on its own or as part of a green waste collection. Next slide, please. Perhaps something that even many British people don't know is that close to 90% of our sewage is treated through AD. UK water companies emit 2.4 million tonnes of CO2. However, in November 2020, the water industry launched the world's first sector-wide plan to deliver net zero carbon emissions by 2030, and AD will play a key role in achieving this target. By 2030, the water industry alone aims to produce enough biomethane to heat around 150,000 homes or for use in transport. Next slide, please. Turning to the agricultural sector, there are 380 on-farm AD plants in the UK. However, most of the potential for AD to decarbonise farming remains untapped. There are 90 million tonnes of animal manures and slurries that are still not being treated through AD. And that's largely because the incentives that have been put in place for AD so far have been very much focused on renewable energy generation, whereas manures and slurries, which have already been digested once, have lower biogas yields than, say, food waste. In 2019, the National Farmers Union launched a strategy to achieve net zero in agriculture by 2040. And AD was recognised here as the single biggest contributor towards reaching that goal. In recent months, the UK Department for Agriculture has been developing the Environmental Land Management Scheme to reward farmers for delivering what it refers to as public goods, as well as carry out work that enhances the environment and tackles climate change and the nature emergency. So we have been lobbying very hard the government to ensure that AD is recognised in this legislation and rewarded within ELMS for its ability to improve sustainability in farming. Next slide, please. So far I've spoken mainly about the current UK AD sector, but last year we published a significant report, Biomethane, the Pathway to 2030, which looked at what the full potential of the industry was if we were to be recycling all of the organic wastes that we humans are producing in the UK, and how that could be achieved in the next decade. Significantly, with a supportive policy environment, AD can cut total UK emissions by 6% by 2030. And crucially, that's in the hardest to decarbonise sectors of waste management, agriculture, heat and transport. And that would deliver 30% of the saving needed to meet the UK's fifth carbon budget for 2030. Moreover, and perhaps more prominent in people's minds, AD has a key role to play in the UK's green recovery. With the right policies in place, the AD sector alone could create 30,000 direct jobs, including and primarily perhaps in rural communities, but another 30,000 indirect jobs in Britain. By 2030, the UK AD industry could attract £20 billion of investment into building a greener Britain, both from domestic and international sources. So to conclude, the UK AD industry is a world leader in AD, and the next decade is going to be critical to achieve the industry's full potential. So in my view, these are exciting times for all of us, and I thank you again for the opportunity to present today, and very much look forward to continuing the collaboration between the UK and Brazil.
Charlotte, thank you very much for that oversight of the overview of the UK AD sector. It's definitely a very exciting time for us in the UK, but as you say, it's equally as exciting with the opportunities that there is for working alongside the Brazilian biogas sector. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Tamir Reitman. Tamir is the Executive Manager of the Brazilian Biogas Association, and she's going to give us an overview of the biogas sector in Brazil. Thank you, Tamir.
Hello, Thomas. It's Tamar, sorry.
My apologies, Tamar.
Okay. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, or good night to everyone who is watching us. I want to thank the opportunity for biogas, the Brazilian Biogas Association, to be part of this event today. And we believe that it's really important for us to strengthen our relations, to be more close to the UK. And we are really happy with the initiative of this UK project here in Brazil. We believe that it would be really important for the development of biogas sector, to the expansion of biogas sector in Brazil. I'm going to share my presentation. Please let me know when you are seeing that, if it's... Are you...
It's perfect.
Is it perfect? Okay, thank you. Let me just start. Okay, so Brazilian Biogas Association started in 2013. Our biogas industry is still in early stages, as I'm going to show you. And biogas started as the way to develop the market and to create the necessary regulation to promote government engagement and to increase public awareness for this source of energy that we have with so much potential. And this is the goal and the objectives of biogas. We have, for now, almost 80 companies that are a part of Brazilian Biogas Association. And it is important to see that we started in 2013 with 8 companies, and now we are almost 80. So it means that this sector in this market, biogas market, is increasing. It is seen as a good source of not only energy, but a source of products and services, and a good solution for Brazil. We see biogas as a source of a lot of kinds of products. So today we are only using it to produce power, heat, fuel, and fertilizers. But we see that in the future, we see that biogas, it can be a biorefinery. It means that it can also produce hydrogen, ammonia, green hydrogen, green ammonia, and syngas. And syngas is a source to produce whatever we want, whatever, a lot of products with anything. And we can substitute all the fossil fuels, and we can substitute anything with this molecule that is the methane and the renewable methane. Today we are still in the phase that we are using most of our biogas to produce power, to produce electricity. And we are still have to advance a little bit to reach a good market for biomethane, as mentioned in the previous presentation. But we are our goal, our aim is to reach for this other and beyond heat and fuels, to produce whatever we want. So all the regulation for producing biogas and biomethane is already established. This was really important, and biogas participated in all of this construction, and so there is no challenge, no problem in producing, selling all of electricity, biomethane, thermal energy. So this is completely necessary for the development of the market, and it is already established. So our challenges in this moment is to expand this source, it's to produce more biogas, is to have more investing in this market, and these passes. So we need some more public awareness, as I have mentioned, that is a role of a biogas. We need to establish some financial conditions that are more, that would promote these investments, and the information and knowledge from all sectors of the society, to governments, public authorities, and public organisms. So this is what we are doing today, so trying to develop the sector by bringing more information. So as I mentioned, biogas is still in early stages. We only represent less than 1%, less than 0.1% of the matrix. And we have today around 600 plants that are producing electricity, thermal energy, and biomethane. But our potential is the same as natural gas production in Brazil. So we have a lot of potential, mainly in the sugarcane industry and animal manure. We now here in Brazil, we are talking about biogas only from residues. There is no energy crops or something, a production that is dedicated to biogas. Here in Brazil, we are only talking about residues. That is really interesting. That is different from other countries, because we are, it means that the carbon footprint of biogas here in Brazil is really, really low, almost nothing. It can be negative. So, and Brazil is the great producer of agricultural and protein chain. So this is where we have a lot of potential. This is why we have a lot of potential to produce biogas. So in our calculations, biogas could substitute 34.5% of electricity demand, or more than 70% of diesel consumption. This is really high. Biogas is distributed all around the country, and we see that distributed generation, there are some policies here to incentivize this kind of production, and it has increased, it has contributed for the development of this market, since we have a lot of potential in the interior of the country. Over 700 million reais were invested already, and we believe that it can reach 10 billion until 2030. This decentralized generation is a natural characteristic of biogas, and the policies, the regulations that incentivize that, it's really important for biogas. Biomethane production still is really low now, almost around 500,000 cubic meters per day, but we believe, and we have strong belief that we can reach 30 million cubic meters per day in 2030. I'm going to tell a little bit about some success cases. As I mentioned, we have more than 600 plants in Brazil. We have recently a lot of plants that are in high scale, high efficiency projects that are operating now, and they can contribute to see that this technology is efficient We have good perspectives here in Brazil. We have trucks and buses that are being produced here nationally with technology to use natural gas and biomethane. We have some tractors and vehicles that can be used in the same production, in the same area where we produce biomethane. This is the top of the negative carbon footprint. So you produce the fuel when you are using it. So this is where we want to get. We have successes projects with in the sugarcane industry that has the greatest potential, as I mentioned, and they are just starting to develop plants there. This is the plant of the Raízen, 21 megawatts of installed capacity. It is the biggest plant in Brazil, I believe in the world. And what we see is that a regulatory framework and that is favorable for biogas, with a lot of discussion here in Brazil in the regulatory environment. And that is the new gas market that is going to develop the natural gas market, and biomethane has great opportunity in this moment. Power sector reform that is going to value our benefits of sources such as biogas, Renovabil, that is a program for biofuels, and the legal framework for the sanitation area. I'm not going to extend because of the time, but the thing is that biogas is the best source in regarding CO2 emissions. Regarding life cycle CO2 emissions, biomethane can be negative in emissions. So it means it helps equilibrate and it helps the environment with the use of other fuels. So we see that in energy transition, biogas is the goal. It's not a transition. Biogas, it's where we want to reach. And this is a report from IRENA that it considers 5 measures for energy reduction in the industry and transportation. In all of these measures, biogas is a solution. So biogas is a solution for every one of these measures. Biogas is a solution for industry with biomethane and renewable electricity, and it's of course a solution for transportation with clean, totally clean, 100% renewable fuel. And biogas advantages, as I mentioned, so reduction of GHG emissions. It's a non-intermittent renewable energy source. It's a storable source. It's decentralized. We can bring methane, biomethane for the interior of the countries. It's flexible, and we also have the production of biofertilizers. So it is a circular economy in itself. I believe that is so. Our main what we want to say here today is that the biogas sector is prepared to take advantage of the regional distribution of residues in Brazil, and the environmental framework and regulatory framework is all established, and we have really good perspectives for the next years. This is what I want to tell today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tamir, for so well illustrating the significant potential there is for biogas in Brazil, and the impact that it will have on decarbonizing the Brazilian economy. It's going to have a crucial role on a global impact basis. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Deborah Sachs. Deborah is from DIT, and she is their expert on waste and waste management sector, and she will explain some of the support that the Department of International Trade, the UK government, can provide for the development of the linkages between Brazil and the UK for the biogas sector. Thank you very much, Deborah.
Thank you very much indeed, Thomas. I'm going to see if this sharing thing works. Can you see my slide? How's that working for you? Yeah?
Yep, that's working perfectly, excellent. Deborah. Yep.
Excellent. So just a little bit of introduction. My name is Deborah Sachs. I work for the Department of International Trade, which is the investment and export department of the United Kingdom. And working with Brazil is really exciting in that context, particularly in this sector, because Brazil is a big, vibrant country with a big economy, and the biogas sector is really active. So there's a lot we can do in terms of sharing our expertise and skills and experiences. Just talking a little bit about the policy background, I think Charlotte's given a lot of information about the development of that in the UK. But I think we really need to consider about the way we communicate the advantages and the role of biogas and anaerobic digestion to the public and to policymakers and to other businesses, because it's so complex. And as in my role in the DIT, I work with several different departments of the UK government, and I think this is quite typical. It's partly about environmental protection and managing waste. So we deal with DEFRA, which is our environment department, and they're interested in agriculture and farming and the protection of soil and water and air. And so there's a whole sort of hygiene element of managing waste, which is quite a high priority for most countries. And then there's aspects of human health and managing litter, and then managing water and sewage and slurries. And then we deal with the energy department because it's also about making energy. And we'll talk a little bit about different kinds of energy, but it's a completely different department with a completely different agenda. Although everybody's interested in carbon reduction, they look at it from a very different angle. And then we have a department for transport. We also have to liaise with to do the transport fuels. And so the way in which we use resources is pooled, and the way in which biogas is generated is pooled in lots of different directions with different government departments. And I think we've probably got some lessons to share about how we work with all different policymakers pulling in different directions. Policy support is really important because although it's a fairly mature industry, it still doesn't compete by itself, I think, with oil and gas. And so there are policy measures to be put in place in order to correctly tax fossil fuel production and support renewables, so there's more of a level playing field. And the other thing that the lessons perhaps that we can share is about the use of biogas. So in the same way as Brazil, we were using a lot of the outputs from anaerobic digestion for generating power. But we now have quite a large amount of renewable power generated by offshore wind, and you have a huge amount of hydroelectric power, which is zero carbon, which is great. So we're now looking at using biogas to really support those much harder to decarbonize sectors. So in the UK, to some large degree, that's heat, and we're developing a new scheme, which Charlotte briefly mentioned, which is the Green Gas Support Scheme, which is to inject biogas into the grid for heating and cooking, which is a major energy use for the UK. But the next stage is probably transport, in terms of the hard to decarbonize sectors, heavy transport, and then aviation and shipping are really the areas where I think efforts are going to be made a lot more strongly in order to steer the use of biogas. So there's a lot of discussion about how best to do that and how to incentivize the use of biogas. Cars are probably going to be electrified, but for heavy vehicles, I think we're really looking at biogas, certainly for the medium term. And Charlotte mentioned that one of our big retail chains, Waitrose and John Lewis, is now using biogas for all their heavy transport. And The other area perhaps is construction machinery and farm machinery and off-road machinery, which could be fueled from fuel generated geographically very, very close to them. So again, I've got a picture of a tractor, Tamar had a picture of a tractor. I think that kind of construction and farm equipment could be really useful. And in London, air quality is a massive issue on construction sites. And I think, again, that's another sector which we should really focus on with this very clean fuel. And the issue of what's happening to that material at the moment, I think is something we need to communicate a bit more carefully. I know that Brazil's got a huge beef industry and dairy industry. And certainly the way that slurries are managed in the UK, I think could be significantly improved. And that's free fuel, that's carbon emissions and methane emissions that are going into the atmosphere now, which we could trap. And there's a picture of a covered lagoon, which I think is the direction we're likely to go in terms of farming. And we're reviewing all the policy support to farmers now with the change in UK policy and leaving the EU. And there's a real opportunity to support farmers to capture their methane and to be much less polluting. I think several people have talked about the potential for biogas, and I won't dwell on this, but I think just to make the point really that we're miles away from exploiting the full potential of the market, and we've got a huge amount of growth and investment that we could be delivering. There's a big debate in the UK. I'd be interested to know how this is being handled in Brazil, but we're debating whether we should go to much larger AD facilities, perhaps for food waste, or more decentralized model with smaller facilities. Obviously, the UK is a much smaller area geographically, but the transport of feedstock and digestate is inefficient if you have to take it over large distances. So I think the decentralized model is likely to gain quite a lot of traction. And there are quite a number of companies that have got modular AD systems and small scale AD systems, and they can be used for slurries and sewage and food wastes and all sorts of materials that aren't being treated at the moment. And then the fuels from those, that process can be used again locally, probably mainly for transport. So there's a bit of a debate about, the efficiencies. Obviously, it's more expensive to have lots of disparate facilities, and there are economies of scale for very large facilities, but you have the transport issues as well. So I think this is an issue would be useful to discuss further. And then we discussed earlier a little bit about the renewable transport fuel obligation, the RTFO, which is quite a useful driver now for biomethane in the UK. And for development fuels, it's actually a double incentive. So there's a lot of people trying to develop new and more highly refined fuels from biogas or wastes. There's a lot of work going into what's been called SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuels. We've set up something called the Jet Zero Council with all the airlines and companies trying to make aviation fuel. And the driver there is really interesting because not only are there some government subsidies, but the airlines are really, really keen to try and drive down their carbon emissions. And this is probably the only way that they're really going to manage it. So it could be that aviation will be mopping up all those feedstocks for the biomethane industry. And then that's not to mention shipping, which I think will be next in the queue. And again, it's a sector which haven't really begun to decarbonize yet. It probably needs to do a lot more work. So there's a lot of people in the queue for the fuels that we produce. And I think we're going to have to sort of try and steer the policy environment so that we ensure that the biogas is used for the hardest to decarbonize areas. I'm just going to finish a little bit about DIT. We've had a few words from David, who talked about the Prosperity Fund, with whom we work very closely, and that's steered by the Foreign Office for us. So the DIT then takes the work into a commercial area. So we work with commercial businesses and try and develop projects that will wash their own face financially and support companies that can make money and successfully trade abroad. We've got a really strong team particularly in Brazil, in Rio, who work on renewable energy, but we have people in our embassies and consulates around the world. So for a UK company, any UK companies that are listening, there's a friendly face for you in any part of the world if you want to trade there. There's a lot of information on our website about new contracts. So if you want to partner with a UK company, please get in touch with us, my colleagues in Rio or myself. We can publicize your contract and partnering opportunities. And if you're looking for equipment or advice or consultancy, we can help with that. We've got a whole network of people throughout the UK and throughout the world who are keen to work with certainly Brazilian biogas companies and understand where we can exchange expertise and equipment and ideas and experience. Just finally, we run a lot of trade missions. A few years ago, I was at this event, the biogas event, in person, and it's great to be attending again, but I'd much rather be attending in person again. So maybe in future years, we can set up some more trade missions and meet again in person. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Deborah, I think we would all agree with you that we prefer to be doing this in person. So we would, but thank you very much for that oversight of your perspective of the UK sector, and also the support that DIT DIT are very much invested in supporting the growth between UK and Brazil. So, the next speaker I'd like to introduce is Luis Gustavo de Oliveira. Luis works as a consultant for the Brazilian Energy Program and is also a consultant for the IEA, International Energy Agency in Brazil. And as part of his work for the Brazilian Energy Program, he's been looking at business models for the deployment of biogas in Brazil. Luis, welcome. I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Thomas, for the introduction. Good morning for those in Brazil. Good afternoon for those in the UK. Just before starting, I have to make a short disclaimer, as some people in the audience may know me from other activities that I develop as consultant for IEA. I don't speak on behalf of IEA, I speak as independent consultant linked to the Instituto 17. So I'll share my screen and start my presentation right now. Just a second. Yeah, it's here. Can you let me know if you can see it? Okay, I suppose so. Is it okay?
Just not too sure if it's up. It's not up full screen yet.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That's it now. Yeah, thank you.
Nice. So what I'm going to present today here is part of the preliminary results of the analysis of business models onto the Brazil Energy Program that we are developing for waste to energy, and try to focus specifically more for biogas in Brazil. And it's kind of a teaser of the full report that we're going to publish it soon. So I'm going to start with a kind of personal note and on how I started working on biogas related topics in Brazil. I started back then in 2010 when I started developing my master thesis on distributed generation from agriculture residuals in Brazil. At the time, I was at DP, the Energy Research Office of the Brazilian government, and we started also developing the first biogas potential studies in Brazil, and also analyzing the competitiveness of these studies. And the results of these studies was, okay, you have a regional potential in Brazil, you have an important share of this potential already competitive. Why can't we deploy this potential that is already competitive? That was the question on my mind for some time when I decided to go to my academic journey to understand better and analyze the biogas innovation systems. And I'm saying that because we must understand the whole of business models on developing or deploying the biogas potential here in Brazil. The way I see right now is that biogas development in Brazil is a kind of energy transition. And as an energy transition, we should understand and coordinate different pieces. Okay.
Luis, please. We are having problems to hear you. There is some windy.
Okay.
There is something.
I'll make sure I can. Just a second here. Problem is my phone here. Just a second.
Okay, please. Thank you.
Now it should be better.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think if you put your microphone more away from your
Okay,
nose.
like, is it better now?
Yes,
So
it's better now.
I think it was the fan.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Sorry.
no worries. As I was saying, if we understand the development of biogas in Brazil as an energy transition, and understand that successful energy transitions require kind of coordination from different pieces, as Tamara has said, the policy and regulatory frameworks in Brazil has already evolved in various points. The policy support, also, as Deborah said, is very important to develop the biogas, but other pieces like technologies, human financial resources, networks, the kind of culture of acceptance of the technologies are also very important. But a key piece is in the entrepreneurial activity. So we must engage private sector players on the biogas transition so that they can really accelerate this transition. And here I see that the main whole of business model for biogas in Brazil is accelerating the energy transition of biogas in Brazil, as it was the case for the solar PV and wind energy here in Brazil. So I think the first point we should understand is what are the foundations to understand to lay out the business models for biogas in Brazil. We may analyze different conditions, but I usually like to point out two main aspects. The first one is that biogas projects go across several sectors, and the second one is there are several possibilities for feedstocks and energy uses. And what does it mean? It means that the stakeholders, the investors that want to develop biogas projects must understand different rules, not only regulations, but also market behaviors, how to contact people, must participate in different networks. So for example, if I have a small farmer trying to develop a biomethane project, which company can he or her contact for gas services, for example? So that's not simple. Usually these are underestimated points, but it's very important to understand this complexity of the biogas. Since we have this already understand this context, the foundations of the biogas business model, we must understand what are business models. Usually, and it's very simple business model, and is understood as a set of activities and a process to organize and create and propose and create values for market players. But the main point of the BEPI project is not only focus on economic values, but mainly understanding the other type of positive impacts in terms of the social and environmental dimensions. So we use the concept of inclusive business models so that we can explore the analysis of business models and include much more benefits to this analysis. How have we been doing that? We've been analyzing these inclusive business models through three different dimensions. The first dimension is the indicators of impact, or the types of impact. So of course you have to understand the economic aspects like the profitability, the cost of recovery, but also the social impact, as I said, the environmental impact, and the scalability and replicability of this business model. I mean, if we understand that a business model is very good in producing benefits, but it's very difficult to replicate, what is the point to focus on that? And also, how innovative it can be this business model now? What are the types of innovation that this business model brings to the market? Another important dimension that usually is not analyzed is the level of impact. We can have, usually we have impacts analyzed at the micro project level. So we can understand the amount of energy produced, we can understand the jobs for the project that are generated, we can understand the mitigation of carbon emissions for a single project, but we leave aside an important level that is the macro and the strategic level impacts. And what are those impacts? Those impacts can engage more high-level stakeholders and can accelerate the legitimacy of the biogas solutions in a given region. For example, we can have the increasing productivity for a specific sector. For example, for power sector, if we have more flexibility given by biogas, supplied by biogas power plants, the power system is more productive, is more efficient. And also we can have the development of supply chains and the increasing of energy security in a given region or even country. So we must understand these different levels of impact. And finally, we should also understand that there are business models that we can develop it right now. So market players are used to develop some projects, are used to expand their portfolios with a specific business model that work today. But there are other types of business models that are not short-term business models that we should act a little bit more to adapt the regulatory frameworks, to understand the market rules, to convince all the types of stakeholders to be developed. So, and then we can have a kind of timeline of the implementation for these business models. And that's the way we are analyzing right now. So which business model we considered so far? We are still in developing. So we are including more families of business models, but so far we've analyzed 5 families of business models, those that I point out here. And we analyze it using a kind of the dimensions that I point out before. And we can draw, for example, this web graph that we can very easily see the different impacts and the benefits of these business models. And also this kind of levelized costs and the potential competitiveness from different types of energy markets is very useful to understand. With those information, we can see and can rank, can select the different benefits and understand which family of business models are more interesting or not. So I'm going very fast because I'm conscious of time. What we found so far, first of all, we see that electricity business models are more competitive in the short term. As Deborah said, the power generation is quite simple to understand because it is a kind of single market. Although we have different types of market segments, it's quite easy. So you go there, you put the power generator, and you have the electricity use what you put on the grid. And the biomethane business model still needs some development, especially to in terms of market players define the technical routes that would be more interesting for them. Another important conclusion is that in general, to be more profitable, biogas business models need different types of revenue streams. Of course, usually you say that we need you sell energy, but you can have carbon certificates, biofertilizer, you can sell CO2, so we have different possibilities. And to have the development of different multiple revenue streams, we still have to learn, and maybe the international experience here is a good way to learn. And also more integrated business models, like we can integrate in the farm production systems or in industrial systems, or use different types of energy carriers and so on. I have a long way to go. So we still are in the very incipient phase for these business models. So how can we move forward? There are some possibilities, and those possibilities here, I see very important points for international collaboration. We can create financial guarantee schemes between large and small companies, for example. We can promote business models towards ESG markets. That's a very important aspect. Another thing is you can design standard contracts, you can design guidelines for public managers. So we can develop hub projects for training local people. So all these aspects that I put here could be very interesting avenues for international collaboration. How can we see that happening in UK or abroad? So that's my final slide, Thomas. And
thank you very much for that quick overview of the work that's been done on the business models, and it quite definitely highlights some of the opportunities in the areas there are for work and cooperation together between Brazilian and UK companies. Just conscious of time and just to keep things moving forward, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dorian Harrison. Dorian has over 20 years experience in the anaerobic digestion sector, and he is going to talk about the work that CLT have been doing in terms of looking at UK technologies and the synergies with Brazil. Dorian, welcome very much to this today's session, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for the introduction. Just share my slides. Okay, great. So, as Thomas said, I'm going to give an overview of the BP assessment for biogas opportunities between UK and Brazil. it's a very high level run and we've only got a short time, so I'm going to go light on details, but hopefully we'll have a chance to discuss it later on. Okay, so if I look at the objectives for the BP that we were trying to address, and there was 4 main objectives of the work. Firstly, we wanted to showcase new and innovative technologies from the UK and internationally to help Brazil develop its biogas rollout for all the good reasons we've been hearing about today. But equally important is the impact on GESI and gender equality and social inclusion. So when we were looking at the pilots to identify, we were also looking at not just the technical viability of those projects, but also the impact on social aspects within the area. And what we're looking at was some potential pilots to generate a sustainable business. I think, as a few people have mentioned, technology for AD is very much a developing technology, and it's been going for a good 20 years in the UK plus. But many models are feasible technically, but not necessarily feasible economically or in terms of longevity. And local scenarios, local infrastructure has a big impact on that. So we were looking at that as well. So the first thing we did was look at, we did a heat map on UK technology. And this is very heavily biomethane focused for the reasons we'll discuss later. But what it doesn't do is focus on all of the background knowledge, background regulatory knowledge. I mean, Deborah mentioned earlier that it's not just technology, it's also regulation, it's also infrastructure that make AD successful or not successful and dictates which technology you would want to go for. But I think where the UK can add significant assistance is that we've got a very large AD sector, thriving. We've got many operational sites now, and we've built up a lot of experience in operation and technology. So we've learned a lot of hard lessons that it would be helpful to pass on to Brazil and companies in this sort of developing marketplace. What we looked at when we looked at the options for AD, and I'm sure there's been a large discussion of this over the last few days, we basically came to the conclusion that there was 3 main areas that we'd look at. So in terms of the marketplace, vinasse from sugarcane is a clear opportunity. It's a very large industry in Brazil. It is dominated by lots of growers who are spread out geographically quite dispersed. And one of the challenges of vinasse is that it is often a pinch point for sugarcane processing. So the production of vinasse and the treatment of vinasse is often inhibiting the sugarcane and bioethanol process itself. So anaerobic digestion has a really useful potential to offer a treatment route for that vinasse, and whilst also generating biomethane and biogas, it has the opportunity to remove that logjam and improve the performance of the core business as well. So we viewed the UK in terms of technologies, and when we were looking for technologies for sites such as this, we were looking at ones that were scalable. So we're looking at technologies that could be developed at a reasonably modest or even small scale, generally speaking, rather than large biomethane facilities. And we considered technologies that would produce biomethane as a vehicle fuel primarily. The logic behind that is most of these facilities are not connected to a gas grid. So whilst many sites in urban areas and in the UK are producing biomethane to inject into a grid, if there is no grid there, the cost of installing that biogas grid would be prohibitive and would prevent any projects going forward. So by converting the biomethane to a vehicle fuel itself, and then using that biomethane to run trucks and facilities on the actual sugarcane processing factories and farms, then it allows us to localize that consumption, and it socializes the technology essentially onto a small scale. So numbers of benefits, we're replacing fossil fuels. We want to be able to demonstrate biogas production from vanasse at a large scale. So we want a reproducible technology. And again, allowing us to increase the bioethanol production itself. The second industry we looked at was cattle. And cattle it's a huge industry in Brazil, but it has its challenges when you consider biogas production. There are somewhere in the order of 211 million head of cattle in Brazil. Most of those are farm-based. Most of them are living and producing the energy supply for the digester on the middle of fields. So the challenge is actually how you get that manure to the anaerobic digestion facility. And if they are pasture raised over a large area, then it's almost impossible. However, there is a small proportion, relatively small, 6 million head, we think, and that number is growing, where the cattle are brought indoors for various reasons, and it's possible to collect that manure in a central place. So I think that is the initial target, I think, for biogas technologies, because it's not just the treatment of the waste, but it's the logistics of collecting the waste in one place. And again, the logic is very similar to that of vanasse, in that we are looking to produce technologies that can be operated on each individual farm. So we want to be able to prove that it's a replicable model, that you can build it on one farm and then you can replicate that model on dozens and hundreds of farms very rapidly. Again, these sites are fairly remote, so infrastructure for injection into the grid is often not present. So biomethane potential as a vehicle fuel is the most likely model, I think. And what we found was a potentially really interesting model here was the potential to develop new supply chain models. So the farm can produce vehicle fuel far in excess of what it can use itself, but it can then sell that vehicle fuel to its supply chain in the surrounding areas. So I think there are some new and interesting models that can be developed around these systems as well. Now, the last industry that we looked at is the sewage biogas, which is my spiritual home. I grew up in this industry. I would probably challenge Charlotte Morton's idea that it started 40 years ago. The techies amongst us would say over 100 years ago, but we'll debate that one another time. It's a growing industry in Brazil. In 1989, 43% of the population was connected to sewage sludge. In 2017, it was 60%, and that's growing still. The advantage of sewage sludge biogas digestion and wastewater treatment is they tend to be in larger urban areas, so they are more likely to be connected to infrastructure such as biogas upgrading. However, there are a number of other factors to consider. Wastewater treatment is an enormous consumer of energy. Estimates worldwide vary between about 1.5% and 2% of the world's energy is used by wastewater treatment. And that's primarily as electricity to drive the aerobic treatment of wastewater. So it's not as clear cut for sewage sludge whether we should be going directly to biomethane as a fuel, or electricity. And I think this is almost going to be a site-by-site discussion. I think one of the largest opportunities, and I've noticed there's been little mention of it so far in terms of potential waste streams, is co-digestion of sewage sludge with food waste, with organic wastes from households and from industry. Again, wastewater treatment plants tend to be located in built-up industrial areas which have a large waste facility, but often the collection of that material is not connected to the treatment of wastewater. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved in connecting the dots between waste collection and sewage treatment collection. But there is a huge potential here, I think, for sort of biofactories which are treating a number of different organic wastes in a single location. So, and again, I go back to the earlier discussion about centralized versus decentralized. Decentralized works really well on farms, on small facilities that are in the middle of nowhere with little infrastructure. Centralized facilities works really well for wastewater treatment, for sewage sludge. So I think the answer to the question depends largely on where you are. So my final slide, I'm very conscious of time, is just an overview of the system we're looking at for developing some pilots. Essentially where we would be taking a relatively small anaerobic digester, producing something on the region of 350 normal cubic meters of methane, biogas, and putting it into both CHP to generate some electricity and also a gas upgrader. And where we think there is a potential very interesting pilots to develop is then compressing that to CNG and using it for vehicle fuel. So very, very crudely, 350 cubic meters of biogas is going to run about 10 trucks. And that is enough to meet the needs and exceed the needs of most of the small producers we're looking at. There are various challenges in that in terms of cleaning up the biogas before the fuel, taking out hydrogen sulfide, siloxanes, things like that. But all of those technologies have been well developed and trialed in the UK. So there are a lot of innovative companies producing smaller scale package plants now that are almost ready to ship and fit and collect. So that's
okay.
A very high level, but thank you for listening.
Dorian, we appreciate that high level overview, but quite definitely the three key areas or core areas that the CLT work has identified is just, it simplifies things for UK and Brazilian companies to come together. And I think the pilot project is a clear example of how UK companies could bring knowledge gained in the market to Brazilian partners and develop projects in Brazil. So thank you very much for that. We're just moving on to our final speaker, Ricardo Müller. Ricardo is a consultant in the project, the GEF Biogas Brazil, with UNIDO. So welcome to this today's event, Ricardo, and we're looking to hear about the work with GEF Biogas Brazil and UNIDO. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Can you see my screen, please? Can you confirm?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
So thank you for you and for all our speakers, because actually there are so many synergies about what they told to us, they bring to us today. It's a pleasure to be here and present the topicalization program. And for who is watching us, if you or your company is looking for an opportunity to initiate a business with Brazil, with a Brazilian company, probably this call will suit you. This call is part of the GEF Biogas project, which is implemented by UNIDO and has as leader institution the MCTI. The program is looking for, as result, to extend the Brazilian portfolio of companies and technologies through the international cooperation between Brazilian and foreign companies. As a goal, the program will tropicalize technologies. It means to adapt or to make the nationalization of the solutions for the Brazilian environmental and economic conditions, as some speakers bring to us this. Focus and solve 6 challenges prioritized by the Brazilian biogas market that I'm going to bring on the next slide. Our target here is to develop at least 8 concept notes, how Scully proposed in this call. The select concept notes will receive 208 hours of specialized technical support with the best Brazilian experts in our market. Taking up the challenges, there are 6 priority lines. You begin for the most emergent. It is the first that is focused on cost reduction and integrated solution for biomethane and CO2 production. Further information about each challenge you can find in our call. The second is looking for technical solutions that provide digestate valorization. And here, as example, is included the hydration technique solutions. The third is focus on peripheral equipment for cost reduction, as example, gas analyzers and mixers. The fourth challenge, the market needs a solution that provides cost reduction and power application for small scales and medium scales and large scale of power generation. It means above 500 kilowatts. And the fifth priority is solutions for biogas compressors and compressed biogas storage. And at least the sixth refers to solutions for biogas purifications to perform the integrated removal of humidity, and the A2S. It's important to let you know that these challenges are results of the Brazilian market research applied to 18 biogas exported and more in 94 Brazilian companies in 2020. So it's really real and solid challenges that we had in Brazil. How the program benefit the companies? Basically, the companies can be benefited from two types of technical supports. On the left side, we have mentoring, and on the right, technical assistance. The first, mentoring, will occur until the submission moment of the concept note. And the second, just for the selected concept notes. In mentoring, the companies can have support for the identification of partners in Brazil if you don't have it ready. And for the potential partners that you find, the program can organize the initial online mapmaking with them. And all interested proposers can receive orientation for the elaboration of the concept notes. In technical assistance, or it means for the selected concept notes, the companies will choose one of the companies can select one or more support offers that are three. The first one is engineering service for adaptation technology, focusing on the Brazilian market needs. The second is studies for market intelligence to understand the main market and suggesting for positioning your solution. And the last, and not less important, is the support on prospect and fundraising to get the project off the ground, as we already talked about. It's really important to have a pilot project running in Brazil. About the timeline, the time frame, the tropicalization program is organized in 4 stages or 4 phases. The first one, opening the call, we started 2 weeks ago with the launch of the call, and it will be open on the next 10 months. Here, there will be 4 evaluation cycles, where the first we went in April. Just a note, if in case we selected the 8 concept notes and attend the 6 channels on this first cycle, probably the next ones will not happen. The call will close. So keep attention on that. The second, it's associated with the end of each evaluation cycle, and you take up to 30 days to receive and return your analyzed concept note. In some cases, the evaluators could request or give you an opportunity to make an adjustment, a small adjustment on the concept notes. The next are the formalization of the cooperation of the formalization between UNIDO and the proposers. And the next one and the last is the beginning of the technical support that will take approximately 3 months to conclude all the technical assistance in each concept note. And how can participate, or what are the conditions to participate in our program? Basically, all companies of any size can apply a concept note. We have The only requirement in this point is to have a commercial cooperation between a Brazilian and a foreign company. And here we have two examples. On our left, it's accepted as commercial cooperation an international company with the subsidiary in Brazil, or on our left, an international company that has or will make an cooperation with an Brazilian company. In both cases, with or without industrial partnership. Why this point is optional? Because the tropicalization program can provide support to identify suppliers in Brazil, focus on the adaptation of technologies. How to apply? Now that you hold the main information, but not further about this program, to submit your conception notes is very easy and simple. In 100% online, it means you don't need to write any physical, submit us any physical document at this moment, and in a single email. So it's needed 5 steps. The first one, access our official website. The second one, download the code and the attachments, where you will find the concept note model and the evaluation criteria. The next, establish a business cooperation in case you don't have it ready. The next, complete the concept notes and submit it to us. What should contain this email? Should contain the concept note attachment, and the title of the email should indicate the project name and the challenge. The email body has to indicate the following details. Here, I just make a note about the third, that is linked to access a video explain the project in up to 3 minutes. That is not mandatory. So is that. Thank you, everyone. And for further information, please contact us and access our official website. Thank you, Thomas. I will pass the floor for you.
Ricardo, thank you very much for presenting that opportunity for cooperation between Brazilian companies and UK companies. So it's a clear opportunity for companies that want to come together on projects. So we're running a wee bit over time. I will ask my co-host Felipe to join us. Felipe, how are you?
Hello, Thomas. How are you?
I'm doing well. A very interesting set of presentations. Clearly, a lot of opportunities for working together between the UK and Brazil. But we have a few questions in from the audience. So maybe Felipe, do you want to lead with the first question to the panel?
Okay. Yeah, it was a really nice panel. A lot of synergies. And a lot of space to do partnerships. The first question is, how would you go about attracting more investment from other countries to further strengthen these partnerships for the development of the bioenergy chain? Please, David, Eloisa, Charlotte, Deborah, Tamar, you can come in and help us answering these questions. Ricardo, Dorian, Luis, please.
I've got lots of opinions, but it's not easy. It's quite hard work. To say that the people around the table today are certainly the first step, and there's quite a lot of knowledge about how to structure a project and put together the business plan. So it's about gathering all those partners, identifying the location, the inputs, the outputs, what regulatory steps you need to take. And I certainly think that with everybody we have here, we've got all the necessary inputs to put together. That's that sort of business plan. And then once we've done it once, we can roll out more. There's a good number of companies in the UK that I know are keen to join this discussion. Many of them members of ADBA. So I think maybe the first step is just to make that list of ingredients of all the elements we need to put together. and then put some names next to it and work out who can do which bits. And just to take forward the actual delivery of the project. I'm quite interested in being part of that.
Yeah, Deborah, I would definitely agree. And the key thing is that this is only the first year of a 3-year program. So there's plenty of opportunities, and there'll definitely be follow-up events. This is very much just about making that natural market contact. So I think that's something that we have to very much keep in mind. Is there any thoughts from on the amongst the Brazilian members of the panel as to moving forward?
If I may, very quickly, today we also have the IEA COP26 Net Zero Summit, and one of the panel was attracting clean energy investments. And there are several recommendations there, but the public support, the public policy support is one of the key aspects for attracting clean energy investments. And there are several good initiatives. For example, South Korea has recently launched a kind of green bonds to provide guarantees for clean energy investments based on the carbon mitigation. So if you have a higher carbon mitigation, you have a higher guarantee according to this bond. So there are several initiatives that can be used to attract investors.
Okay, yeah, Luis, definitely the whole aspect of green bonds and decarbonisation is going to be a significant driver, as we've discussed within the sector. Is there anything more that the panel thinks can be done between the two countries to enhance and make financially feasible for rural populations in particular the production of biogas in Brazil?
Thomas, if I may jump in?
Yes.
I think well, from the Energy Research Office point of view, we could enhance the partnerships we already have. We already have several initiatives, and I would point out the importance of research, development, and innovation initiatives. They are, I think, a key to success. We have seen lots of the business models and the challenges. I think focusing in research and development or enhancing our investment in that might help or should help advancing. And I would also mention bringing the theme more to the general population. I think here we are amongst specialists, but I think especially from when we look of the synergies amongst other industries, for instance, at the Energy Research Office, we have been champion biogas and its potential to enhance results from the sugarcane industry perspective. And we've seen business models developing on that. But it might be helpful if we try to reach the agro-industry people from the other side of the industry and bring them to the table as well. I think those two initiatives would be my key points on where we could enhance. We have a technical visit, for instance, in 2019 in the UK. It was extremely important. And we have been saying here at EPE that more and more when we talk about energy transition, we must be able to better coordinate policies. So coordinate policies, we are talking about challenges that require effort from different actors in government and from private institutions. We must have coordination mechanisms for that. And that would be my 2 cents. Thank you. Okay.
There is another question that is really in this subject for Charlotte or Deborah. What Brazil can learn with green gas support scheme, specifically how UK is supporting and encouraging projects that seeks to inject the biomethane into the grid through tax incentives, feed, carbon credit mechanisms, and all.
I'll go first, and then Charlotte can add something. So the lessons that I've learned are that an incentive scheme needs to be stable and long-term, because these projects take a little while to put together, and from the planning stage to the delivery stage, and then for the implementation stage, the incentive has got to be there, guaranteed, and it's got to be just sufficient to bring the projects through. So we've perhaps learned that lesson the hard way, and not been as stable in our mechanisms as we could have been. So that's a really important part of it. Very strong, clear regulation, I think, is absolutely essential, so that everybody knows what the rules are and has to follow them. And the subsidy has to be pitched at the right level, not too much and not too little. There's been some difficult lessons learned about over-generous subsidies as much as under-generous ones. So you've got to do your homework and really work out what a project will cost in different locations and in different circumstances, and then pitch it more or less at the right level. And probably the most successful approach that the UK has developed is the contracts for difference auction mechanism, because that has enabled the pitching of the amount of subsidy to be determined by the market. So that was done for power. And there's discussion about doing it for carbon capture next. So basically the government says to companies, can you suggest how much you would be willing to supply power for? And those that present the best value for money will win a contract with the government for that power. And then that encourages the businesses to be as competitive as possible and to pitch it as low as possible. And then the government gives us stability for the input for the power, and that has actually been quite a useful mechanism, and I think has been borrowed by a lot of other countries as well.
Yeah, definitely, Deborah. It's the government have shown a lot of leadership and vision within that there. So the lessons have been learned, so they went along. But Charlotte, I was wondering what your thoughts are.
Well, Deborah gave a great summary. So I think the only things I'd probably add to that are that it's very helpful not just to know that a subsidy is going to be around for a long time, but sort of have a sort of bigger vision about where the whole industry is sort of going, so that there's a sort of buy-in from all parties involved, know what the future of the industry holds. It is obviously really important that Deborah talked about sort of knowing what the relevant rules are for injecting into the grid, but all plants do need to be designed and operated well, and we're in a situation where all around the world really, where there's a lot of people having to learn how to design and build and operate plants. So making sure that all plants are built well is crucial for the future reputation of the industry.
Yeah, I quite definitely agree with you on that, Charlotte. Like, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the experiences within the UK about the construction and operation of plants, and to give funders the comfort that the projects will be delivered as they're presented. So that's a key thing. But we're more or less at our time. So we have a discussion panel after this, and I'm very much looking forward to picking up our discussions many discussions that the presentations today have given risen to. So I think it's been a very useful introduction to the work of the UK Brazilian Energy Programme and the potential that there is for building links between the biogas sectors of Brazil and the UK. So I'd like to thank all the speakers for their time, and I believe Katja has a few words to say at the end, and we'll move forward till the discussion panel. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Felipe. Thank you, all the speakers. Thank you is a word that I can say, but there's much more than this. I hope that everyone that was listening to this session was enjoying was enjoying it. And as Thomas already mentioned, and Felipe, this is just the beginning. This is the first event that Brazilian Energy Program organized, and there will be lots to come. So we appreciate you being here and, you know, organized with us this kickoff. So now we will go to discussion rooms. You can find the links to discussion rooms on the homepage of the platform. In the discussion room number 1, we'll be discussing how can exchange of knowledge with other countries help in the development of biogas sector in Brazil. And the second one will be more focused on Brazil, United Kingdom cooperation opportunities in biogas. Experiences that can be shared for the common objective of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, gender equity, and social inclusion. Moderation of this panel will be in English. If there is someone that wants to discuss or has a question in Portuguese, we will do our best to translate this. I think Felipe, our moderator, will be helping with translation. So it will be a little bit of improvisation, but I think it's going to be a good discussion. As mentioned at the very beginning, it's limited to 50 participants. So please, from your homepage, you can access there. And also we would like to invite you to explore sponsors and organizer stands by entering the business space opportunity to know products and generate contacts with whomever you think you can find interesting. You can explore further, you can debate, and you can take it also beyond this platform and this event. We wish you a great break afterwards, and then we meet later on for the biomethane panel challenges and opportunities. So thank you again, all of you, and see you in discussion rooms.
Olá, agora a gente vai transmitir a palavra, o código da palavra. Vamos colocar aqui na tela para vocês que estão participando da gamificação.
Só mais uns to join those discussion panels? I don't have
só mais uns instantes.
I'm not too sure, Deborah, just at the moment, whether we stay on this platform till join the discussion panel.
No, you will need to go to the platform homepage, and there you can click to enter.
Okay. So, right. Thank you, Katja.
Yes, sure.
And that's just...
Agora sim.
Is it possible for you to send the link? I don't think I have one.
Colocou? Conseguiu colocar, Thaís?
Me passou redução de emissões, Cássia, por favor. Não abriu, não.
Só mais uns instantes, a gente já vai publicar a palavra do quiz. Para vocês que estão participando, conseguirem ganhar mais alguns pontinhos. Agora sim, aqui em português. Então, a palavra é redução de emissões. Para vocês que estão participando do quiz, podem garantir mais alguns pontos com a palavra redução de emissões. Importante que vocês coloquem a palavra toda junta, sem espaços, tá bom? O código de acesso está na tela. Então, vocês podem colocar a redução de emissões, sem espaço, a palavra toda junta. Obrigada a todos. Nós vamos encerrar a transmissão nesse momento.